Hi, and welcome to the Learning Curve with Kenny, the podcast where we explore strategies, mindset, and the best practices to elevate learning and development. I'm your host, Kenny, and today we have an insightful conversation lined up about an approach that could revolutionize how L&D professionals engage learners, adopting a marketing mindset. If you've ever struggled with engagement, adoption, or impact in your learning programs, this episode could be for you. Joining us today is Ashley Hinchcliffe, CEO of Mass Marketing. Ashley is a leader in helping organizations rethink how they communicate and market their learning initiatives. She's passionate about bridging the gap between marketing and learning to create more impactful experiences. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Okay, so before we jump in, I always love to start with a learning moment. What's one thing you've recently learned that completely changed how you see things?
ChatGPT.
Oh, that was a good one.
True story. Honestly, were you expecting me to mull on that? It's staggering, truthfully. I've been playing around with it. At first, I was quite like, this isn't going to do it. I've been collaborating really closely with it. I know I'm talking about it like it's like a person or something, but it's such a wonderful tool. It doesn't replace the things that I do in marketing, but it helps me get there faster. It's taken work and investment and time to get to that place, but that has really shaped the way that I see AI, because I think up to me using it fervently, I was quite resistant to it. Like, no, you got to be a marketer. It's got to be pure and true. And turns out you don't.
I have to absolutely jump on board that train because I started using ChatGPT. And I have to absolutely agree. It's a fantastic tool. I think it's amazing how easy it is to use. And you have to get kind of the right mindset. And a quick anecdote. My wife was upset with me about something. So I put in some things on ChatGPT, and it spit out a little TV series, a comedy TV series about interactions with me and my wife, and I thought that was absolutely fantastic. So that was just a side anecdote, and she thought it was pretty funny. So it was the wife that knows everything, which might be you, and the husband that tries
Obviously.
very hard, but forgets what's going on. So in any case, okay, so ChatGPT is the one tool that was for you a game breaker. So let's go a little bit further. Many L&D teams work hard to build training programs, but they often struggle with engagement and adoption. Ashley, why do you think traditional L&D approaches often fail to capture the learner's attention?
Well, there's two sides of the same coin that I think and believe we tend to fail at when it comes to getting people engaged with our learning products and then sustaining that engagement to change behavior and positively impact performance. The first one is the learning products themselves. Now, we tend to build these in silo. We are very much still a center that people approach us to create things. There's no business context. It's not aligned to business goals. We're blindly creating learning products a lot of the time. Intentions are very good, don't get me wrong, but we're not always building to meet organizational needs in terms of what the business is trying to achieve, but we're also not often building to meet employee needs and employee expectations as well. We're in that order taker, that running around the hamster wheel. So we're creating substandard products that aren't aligned to clear requirements and audience needs. And as a marketer, we know that bad products don't work, right? Bad products fail. You can do the best marketing in the world, but eventually bad products will fail.
Eventually.
By
that time,
sure.
Sometimes.
Yeah, but look at learning, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But the other side of that, of course, is then we don't really do a huge amount of marketing for those substandard products. So not only do we have something that isn't really hitting the notes from a marketing perspective, from a product perspective, we then do very little, if any, marketing and communications with regard to those products.
Okay.
We don't ever do consistent multi-channel marketing campaigns. It's if I ever
Mhm.
see marketing being done at all, it's often single instances of correspondence with the audience, such as a all hands meeting, an email, things like that. We know, again, as marketers, that we need to be keeping front of mind in order to have presence and stay conscious with people. But also, again, if that product doesn't work, it doesn't really matter anyways. I could dig into the nitty gritty about the content of those campaigns and how they're not really, again, aligned to the audience. But I think as a starting point, that's probably where we're going wrong. Two sides of the same coin.
Okay, that's a really nice explanation there. So, um, uh, there sometimes I see parallels between L&D and marketing. Marketing is all about capturing, holding attention. So, there's a lot we can learn from that. How can L&D professionals apply marketing principles to their learning programs?
Do you mean in terms of the actual creation of learning programs, like the learning products, or
Well, we were
more
talking about
broadly?
mindset, so let's take it from the broader aspect of the mindset. How can so like I said, the initial idea is that basically, in the sense that marketing is all about capturing, holding attention, and the same thing is what we're actually trying to do with our trainings. So,
Mhm.
in that aspect, how would you say that?
I think one of the core things that sits at the heart of everything that marketers do is the audience. Human centricity,
Hmm.
authenticity, but really meeting those audience wants and needs and expectations. So again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. When we're creating learning experiences in silo, we're not often speaking to the audience that it's being made for. We have no real
Hmm.
context and understanding as to whether it's appropriate for them, how time poor or not they are, what's going on organizationally and culturally, whether they, what sort of time do they even have to allocate to this, what other pressures are they experiencing. All
Hmm.
of this is really important in what a marketer does. When products are being created to go to market
Hmm.
research is done to understand what else is going on, who are we
Hmm.
competing with. And guess what, L&D, you're competing with TikTok and Instagram and that laundry that needs folding and their children that
Hmm.
are screaming. You're competing with all of that noise that exists in
Hmm.
that audience's mind. So we create far too much in silo. First of all, we need to speak to our audiences more and really understand what's going to work for them, what they need, instead of having some SME or a stakeholder just tell us, I need a training that is a 90-minute e-learning module on X, Y, or Z. That's not
Hmm.
helpful. And we need to obviously get much better at saying no. In addition to that, I personally think that we need to look at more like the behavioral science side of things as well,
Hmm.
influencing and persuading. Things like spaced repetition is really, really important. For example, if we want people to apply something and not only learn something,
Hmm.
remember it, and then apply it, we know that we need to, as marketers, again, like we need to keep front of mind. We're always around, lurking in the corners, or on a billboard, or in a
Hmm.
poster. You see us in a push ad, then suddenly there's an advert on the telly, so on and so forth. Learning's very similar. We can't expect someone to undertake an e-learning module
Hmm.
and have some like massive epitome around that, change their behavior, positively impact performance. There has to be this opportunity for them to reflect and apply and then revisit and reflect and apply and revisit. So things like blended programs I think are really effective.
Hmm.
But we need to look at how we can give people the opportunity to apply what they learn and then come back to them with that information again in a different context.
Okay. Um, wow, that's a lot of information at once. In the meantime, I was wondering. Um, Oftentimes, I see in. Do you think then maybe there's more inner? We're talking about giving L&D a marketing mindset. So, um, and you say silos. So is it then, if you're looking at a large company, say where you have a marketing department, you have an L&D department. So have you seen that the interaction between those is not sufficient, or um, for example, we do business consulting, or we consult on the LMS, but part of the activity that our consultants do is to also be project managers. And sometimes we try to instill in them that they have to have like a mindset of a project manager so they can you know, how should I say this? If you're already in that mindset, you approach the problem differently. And so
Sure.
the question that I was trying to get out, or where I was heading with this, was basically, do you think that in a large company where you have a marketing department, L&D department, is it just that these two have to work better together, or is it more advantageous if the L&D department adopts like a mindset of marketing, so that they're already more in tune to what marketing might be able to offer?
Definitely the latter.
Hmm.
L&D and marketing very rarely collaborate, and that's primarily because their target audiences are distinctly different. Marketing
Okay.
team is tasked with getting that business more customers. It's going to be B2B or B2C, depending on the nature of the business. They're going to have a lot more marketing channels at their disposal, like social media, email, like email platforms. They got a lot more tech, but their objectives are very different. They're all about driving leads and
Hmm.
ROI for the business, and highly scrutinized, by the way, even though they probably have less budget than L&D in many cases. I think L&D collaborating closely with internal comms is crucial,
Hmm.
because they again are very aware of the audience and what's going on. They're also the boss. They have a
Hmm.
bit more control over what's going on in the business. They'll have a comms plan. Oh, well, you can't do anything on this day because the CEO is making a new announcement on X,
Hmm.
Y, or Z, whatever. So I believe it's crucial, really. We do a lot of copywriting as L&D
Hmm.
professionals. We do a lot of design work, and we absolutely need to be building awareness with our learning products in order for them to have any sort of success in the business, product quality aside.
Hmm.
So we do need to start to build that skill set and build that marketing muscle as learning professionals, because we are being held back by not understanding what it really means to
Hmm.
think like a marketer and be a marketer.
Okay. Um, since one of the things I've learned on, learning development or learning as such, is that we always, learn by example. So do you have a real world example where an organization has successfully applied marketing strategies to their L&D initiatives, or have you partaken in anything or done anything yourself in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mass has been around for 6 years in October. We're a multi-award winning agency. We've got incredible client examples of where this has been successful. Probably one of the
Hmm.
best ones was Capgemini University. We
Hmm.
collaborated really closely with them. They were launching out a series of Gen AI education, going back to ChatGPT and the such like.
Hmm.
And it was really crucial as an organization that they raised awareness of these learning opportunities, because they really wanted it. It was a bit of an identified
Hmm.
skills gap within the organization. But they've got 400,000 employees, so it's a
Oh,
gargantuan task of
okay.
unpicking all of that. So we did an extensive amount of market research or discovery work or audience insights, however you want to say it. It's all under the
Hmm.
same tin. We went around and we talked to people, and we asked
Okay.
them what the heck was going on in the business, what their
Okay.
challenges were, so on and so forth. Built out a really, things like learner personas, really identified key messaging that was going to resonate with the audiences, and then built out a campaign which has won British Training Award, Awareness Campaign of the Year. I don't have the stats off the top of my head, but it was something like 82,000 people engaged in the first 12 weeks.
Wow.
And we had nearly 50% return visitors just from that single campaign. And that was, again, that wasn't just because we sent some emails and we did some social media posts and we did some posters or whatever. It
Hmm.
was actually because we did that initial research piece, which we won't take
Okay.
on a project if we can't do
Okay.
that.
Hmm.
It's a massive gap in what we do in L&D. We are not creating by speaking to people. We're just creating, waving our fingers in the air and
Hmm.
making a guess about what we think might work or might not.
Hmm.
You'd be surprised what's really going on in your businesses and what people's real attitudes are towards your learning brand. Whether you have some colors or logo, the brand
Hmm.
still exists.
Yeah.
And that's important to understand, because if your people are really obstinate and they're quite resentful towards learning, you need to
Hmm.
overcome that and you need to rebuild trust. Whereas if people are a bit like quite interested in learning but they just don't really know what's available, you can obviously very clearly see how different the positioning for a campaign would be just from those two simple use cases.
Okay, that's awesome. The metrics alone is pretty incredible. If you say 50%
Yeah.
were returners, I mean that's Really, really good. But this is actually a perfect segue to the next question that I have, and that would be for the L&D listeners that are out there listening today to the podcast, um, who want to make this shift. What are some of the first steps that they can start thinking more like marketers?
There's a couple. So we're really passionate as a company about educating and empowering L&D. We
Mm-hmm.
give a significant amount of our knowledge and expertise away. So we have our own Marketing for Learning podcast where we just talk about marketing for learning, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
kind of make peace with my accent and Hannah's accent. But once you get past those weird accents,
Oh,
there's a
I can
lot.
understand you perfectly. No problem here.
There's a lot of insights in there, and we're really designed again short, snappy, 15, 20 minutes. Obviously, if we have
Mm-hmm.
interviews and things, they're longer, but it's really tactical again the
Mm-hmm.
the biggest notion that sits within all of that is tackling that mindset piece, because we find L&D professionals do work in there's a learning lens in everything that they do,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to step away from that and kind of drop that learning lens. They're not learners, they're human beings,
Mm-hmm.
they're people, and they don't want to necessarily learn, and they're not like intrinsically motivated to go and find your learning platform or your
Okay.
15 other learning platforms. So I would say listen to our podcast. Again, we've got tons of guides and free guides and blogs. Like there's loads of stuff on the Mass website.
Mm-hmm.
Follow me on LinkedIn because again, I share lots of stuff there. And truthfully as well, things like HubSpot has like an academy for like content marketing and design. And whilst they are a
Mm-hmm.
company that helps businesses to market themselves to other businesses, the truth of the matter is the fundamentals don't really change. You can kind of very clearly see where you'd have to just shift something very simply in order to make it work for an internal
Okay.
audience. So really, I think, and of course, I guess the last thing is if you have money and your budget, we run a course
Mm-hmm.
that's all around strategic marketing for L&D, which is,
Okay.
we've done it for about 150 people now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, I've just got the results today from a survey that we're doing because we're entering
Okay.
it into award. And I'll actually just read them to you because they're incredible results. So
Okay.
we had basically it's not loading. I don't know what's going on. Oh, that's fine. So, after completing the course, how would you describe your current mindset towards marketing your learning initiatives? 100% said I feel more confident and empowered.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody gets a learning campaign. 85% of those people have applied their learning campaign
Okay.
after this fact. The biggest one for us really is, do you think this course has changed how you approach learner engagement?
Mm-hmm.
Every single person said yes.
Okay.
So again, if you're serious about learning this skill, it's a specialist course that's focused on people functions. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to really pitch that. But if that's something you want to learn, it is an excellent course, if I do say so myself, and at least
Okay.
the results and the stats sit behind it.
Okay. So let's break it down to 3 steps. So the first step would be to generally be open for the topic and to have some awareness of that, right?
Not even that. Do you know what? I think sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. So really
There is that.
understanding that, like what is marketing? It's more
Mm-hmm.
than a single instances of emails. It's more than just sitting at your desk and typing an email in silo. Like we need to
Mm-hmm.
understand our audiences. We need to answer the why and the what's in it for me. Like go and listen to Simon Sinek's Golden Circle about, all about answering the why for your audience. We
Mm-hmm.
don't do that. So I think the first step is actually acknowledging that you're not a marketer, you're a learning professional. You
Mm-hmm.
do need to do a significant amount of marketing within your role, but it's not going to necessarily come naturally because that's not what you do for a living. That's not how you think. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that acknowledgement that actually there is a limitation here, and maybe the way that I think about things can cause me challenges when I'm trying to do marketing. It's great when I'm doing my learning strategy and things like that, but it can cause issues when I'm looking at doing marketing and influencing behavior,
Okay. Okay. That sounds good. Okay. So I had one more question. I'm not sure if this applies though, but one of the things we always try to do, like you said, you threw out some numbers there to the analytics of everything. So both in marketing as well as in our learning management system, you always try to derive how effective your training is actually being. So, or how effective your training is. Um, what kind of data do you think an L&D teams should be tracking, and how can they use it to optimize their learning experience? Oof, I'm not sure
So
about that one.
if they're doing marketing as well, and
Mm-hmm.
they're doing campaigns, then I think there's a twofold data piece that we should be looking at.
Okay.
One is around the performance of our marketing efforts, which is around engagement with our content, right? Emails, opens, and click throughs, social media interactions, likes, click throughs, that sort of thing. How is our marketing performing? We could measure brand sentiment, do a survey before and after the campaign, things like that. How aware are people of what we have before and after that? That will measure the performance of our marketing efforts.
Mm-hmm.
The converse of that is really, how do we prove that learning's effective? And that's a much more complex subject. I'm not going to attempt to even unpick all of it. But what I will say is, again, L&D has an infatuation with attendance, bums on seats, completion rates, because that information is usually readily available, or it's very easy for us to get our hands on. Where we struggle is correlating learning undertaken with performance impact, behavior change.
Yes, most definitely.
First and foremost, we need to be understanding the business objectives, right? So I would say, first of all, I don't think everything in L&D needs to be measured. And I think if you're trying to measure everything, you're doing the wrong things, because we don't need to measure everything. That's not the goal of what we're trying to do. To my mind, we are still a business enablement function, and therefore we should be building learning opportunities that are aligned to business goals. Whatever those might be. Like, okay, there's a lot of M&A going to be happening in the next 3 years in our organization, right? We're going to have to really upskill people on how to manage and mitigate change and navigate change. And like, that's a really crucial business initiative that can be largely supported by L&D. Then you can have some very clear metrics that are aligned to all of that. So I think, again, we're trying to find metrics with stuff that we've already created, and we're putting the horse before the car, if you want an analogy. You know, I don't think we think about this stuff until we're asked, and then we don't have a lot to substantiate because we haven't thought about benchmarking. We haven't answered that why. We don't really know why we're creating a lot of the content that we're creating. We're just doing it because we're being asked to. But is it going to have a positive impact on the business? Because if it isn't, I would argue, why are you doing it? What's the point?
Okay. Well, I like that. Although my main takeaway in the whole thing, and I think the part that I did like a lot was that not everything should be, like you said, the one quote that you had is, not everything needs to be data driven or measured. And I think that's really good too, because it allows, one of the things that I've also learned is that, learning takes a whole bunch of different forms. And everybody learns in a different way and has different capacities and so forth. So, always putting a number by everything doesn't really solve the problem by itself. So,
no. And if you prescribe to things like 70-20-10, then only 10% of learning is formal anyways.
Yep.
Therefore, only 10% of it has the potential to even be measurable, really.
Yep.
So, I think the truth of the matter is, we should be identifying really crucial initiatives and looking at benchmarking and piloting, and then, really measuring those. But do we care about our soft skills learning, and whether it's like it's there? If people want to build their communication skills, if they want to be better active listeners, things like this, okay, cool, you have some on-demand stuff that sits in your learning platform for that. Woohoo! Is it business relevant in its truest sense? Probably not. So I think we need to do an exercise, an audit of, what's really crucial here. What do we want to measure impact on? What are we building campaigns around? That's the stuff we want to be measuring, because it's obviously important enough that we're going to do marketing around it. So,
okay. So, as part of the podcast, we always try to, impart knowledge and so forth and so on. But and in this one here, we're trying to get a little bit more of the L&D people to adopt the marketing mindset. But of course, that sounds great in theory, but the question is, it's probably not without its challenges. So what would you think are some of the common mistakes an L&D team could make when implementing marketing strategies in their learning initiatives?
Great question, and some strong examples that I can give. So one is learner personas.
What was that?
Learner personas. So
Okay.
we talk a lot about building audience personas. Marketers use them heavily to help them segment audiences, adapt messaging, pick the right marketing channels, pick the right design, look and feel, all of the above. A lot of people that I've worked with say, I'll talk to them like, we need to look at learner personas. We do that research piece and then we build them out. And I say, have you got personas? And they say, yes, we have personas. And I'm like, yes, brilliant. We have personas. We don't have to do that bit of work for you. And then they send me the personas.
And you're like, going, what the?
It's usually, you know what? Well, the worst one I've ever seen was like a spreadsheet with just some job titles on them. And it was like 4 job titles or something. And I was like, that's not, but the truth of the matter is, even when I see more detailed ones, they're very learning focused. So it's all about, well, what learning requirements do they have? And what maybe they need this and they need this and they're this type of learner. And like, if I ever see learning styles in them, I get very upset. But what we need to be looking at is really who these people are. What are their motivators? Primarily, what are their pain points? Because when we're trying to influence audiences, we need to know what pain they're experiencing, and how what we offer allays that pain and solves that pain for them. So learner personas are a massive like pitfall, because I think what L&D thinks a persona is not what a persona needs to be in order to help it inform your marketing. So that's one. One of the other things I see is this, and honestly, I can go find things that people have said to this note on LinkedIn, on posts I've done. This assumption that because someone works at your organization that they want to learn, or that because they work at your organization that they should be wanting to learn. It's a very limiting mindset, because immediately you're starting from a point of thinking that all I need to do is let people know that it's here and they already want to do it. I just need to tell them about it. So that, again, it really influences how you present information. Like, most of the comms that we see is like, hey, there's a new course. Hey, go and sign up for this. Or our platform's over here. Go do that. There's no why. There's no, again, no what's in it for me. There's nothing kind of like it, stimulating anybody to do anything. It's just going to get deleted. So again, marketers almost start from like the other opposite extreme instance, which is like, nobody knows what we're doing and nobody cares. And it's our job to let them know what it is, and we let them know exactly why it's important to them. Even massive brands, Coca-Cola, Apple, Google, they advertise still to stay front of mind, keep their market share, and keep people aware that they exist. Massive brands that are so eponymous. So I think those two things are what I see massively all the time, like not answering the what's in it for me, not answering the why, and really making the assumption that because someone works at your organization that they should want to learn. And one more, just to add, because it really
make it a 3
is if you build it, they will come. Right? The Kevin Costner fallacy, as I like to call it. The Field of Dreams fallacy.
Man, you're destroying something here in me now. I always thought that one was good, build it and they will come. But
not without marketing.
Not without marketing.
Yeah, let's break it down, right? I'll give you an analogy.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not going to use Tesla for because Elon Musk is doing his thing, but let's say a new car brand.
That name is good.
Let's say a new car brand. Like Tesla was a good example, because they were like really kind of revolutionizing the electric car market a few years ago. So let's say Tesla goes and says, okay, we're not in the UK right now. We want to penetrate that market. So what we're going to do is we're going to build loads of car showrooms, and we're going to just intersperse them around the UK, or we're going to create one central location in center of the UK, and we're going to put loads of cars in it. If you're with me so far, the car center is your LMS, and all the cars is your learning content, right?
Okay.
And then that's it. Is anybody going to go find the cars? Is anybody going to go buy the cars? No, because
No.
nobody knows about the cars. No one that you've just built a thing and put it somewhere and that's it. So they will have done aggressive marketing campaigns to not only raise awareness of the product, but then slowly break people down into understanding this is why this product's really great for you and this is how it solves this problem and this is, it's green energy and so on and so forth. We don't do a lot of that. We build it and think that that's enough to make our audiences want to engage with it. And it isn't, because no other product in the world that wants to be successful and heavily used by their audiences would do that.
I'll give you that one. Although I do have to say that on our side, on the LMS side, I think that message has also become quite clear that just simply putting out something isn't enough. So we have a couple technical things that also do in a certain way also advertise the product or the learning courses to individuals by trying to derive what's interesting to them and trying to offer that to them. So I think that'll be, artificial intelligence will be a game changer in that aspect too. So, but I perfectly agree with you. The Field of Dreams analogy was a good one. Just by putting content out there doesn't mean that people will automatically learn it. And the other assumption, the other false assumption is just saying that people are always willing and hungry to learn is also not simply doesn't stand by itself.
No. And like going back to what you were saying with like the AI piece, like it is great, but you still have to put data into it.
Yes.
So again, if we want to have personalization and segmentation and like, okay, in Amazon, like, oh, well, you've bought these things, you might find this interesting. Or hey, Netflix, like you've watched X, Y, and Z, you're probably going to be interested in this because of that. Because I've use an algorithm to measure your behavior and then churn out things that come out the other side of that. The complexity of actually doing all of that is really sophisticated and challenging, and I'm yet to see anything like that really truly work. But at the crux of all of that, it still requires people initially using the product to get that information from them. So there's a lot of digital exhaust from people, but they still have to leave that footprint somewhere in order for you to do anything useful with it. So again, it all goes back to you got to raise awareness. You've got to build habits with that stuff if you want to then do cool stuff like personalization, AI, segmentation, that sort of thing.
Well, Ashley, you've certainly given us a lot of food for thought. So we're coming close to the end of this podcast. So we've talked about present and let's take an outlook into the future. So looking ahead, how do you see the future of L&D evolving with a more marketing driven approach?
I have a dream and a vision that maybe, we can go back to the drawing board a little bit and redefine the function. Certainly from where I'm stood, the economic instability is creating an interesting time of uncertainty, particularly in L&D. I'm seeing a significant shift in how businesses see L&D, value L&D, but also L&D is often becoming part of a wider people function where the remit sits across talent, HR, and maybe learning and development as well. So things are changing for us anyways. I think it's a really strong opportunity to change the way that we do things, right? Really analyze what we're doing at the moment and is it working? For me, the steps are really, really simple. And I know it's a big task to do all this, but it is straightforward. We need to understand what it is that the business is trying to achieve and how we can align our learning efforts to that. Okay. We also really need to deeply understand our audiences in order to build effective learning products, but also to make sure that the marketing that we build subsequently to raise awareness of those great products is actually going to hit the mark and hit the right notes for people. So we need to build with insights and data rather than assumptions. And that's for both a product perspective, from a learning product perspective, but also from a campaign's perspective. Further to that, I'd love to see more data that matters, right? Less completions, less bums on seats, and actually, because you've started with those business goals, you can actually then prove that impact and that performance on really key initiatives, not on everything, right?
Okay. I actually had a follow-up question that was going to be, if there's one mindset shift that could change the way L&D teams approach their work, what would it be? But I think you already answered that in your previous question. So I'll directly go to my final one, and that's the call to action, so to say. For our listeners who want to dive deeper into this, do you have a book or a digital resource that you'd recommend to help them develop their marketing mindset?
Yep, I've got a wonderfully extensive guide that's about 60 pages long that is titled Everything L&D Leaders Need to Know About Marketing. That probably hits the right notes, I would have thought.
Ding. Okay.
Bing bong.
Bing bong. Okay. Ashley, thank you very much. That wraps up today's episode of The Learning Curve with me, Kenny. And a huge thank you to Ashley for sharing your insights and giving us a lot of valuable input, something to think about. And to all of you listening out there, if you found today's conversation valuable, don't forget to subscribe or leave a review and share this episode with someone you could think would benefit from it. So until next time, keep learning, keep growing. That's it from me, Kenny.
The Learning Curve with Kenny is presented to you by Share IMC, one of the leading providers of digital learning solutions. Make sure not to miss any of our seasonal content by subscribing in the podcast app of your choice.